Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's InduSoft Web Studio webinar covering version 8, Service Pack 1, Patch 1. We're going to go ahead and get started. I've seen what looks to be the last-minute people come on. Thank you for joining us, everybody. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Scott Courtier. I'm Senior Technical Sales with InduSoft, and I'm going to be your host today. And today we're going to be primarily covering version 8, Service Pack 1, Patch 1, which is the current version that's available for download from the website. But before that, what we're going to do is a quick introduction. And I'm doing that for two different reasons. Number one, there might be some of you on this webinar who were handed the product and said, hey, we're going to be using this. Why don't you go learn something about it? So I'm going to give a quick introduction. Although it's not a detailed introduction, it's primarily an introduction, and this is the second reason I'm doing this, because some of the features that I'm going to talk about in the product updates are related to a set of features that I'm going to talk about in this introduction. Then I'm going to cover, let's see, so what's previous, the previous version, which was Service Pack 1. What's new in the current version, which is Service Pack 1, Patch 1, and then what's upcoming kind of down the road for the next couple of versions. Talk about some resources and where you can find those on the website, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. Before I get started, for those of you who don't know this, on this type of webinar, I can't hear you. So if you have a question, put that into the chat panel or the Q&A panel on the WebEx interface. And I'll try to get to those during the presentation, but if not, you can see down here at the bottom, there's a questions and answers section, so I'll get to those at the end as well. Don't save your questions for the end. I'd appreciate it if you get those in early. And also, we are recording this webinar, so that'll be up on the website in a couple of days usually. And we'll be sending you a survey, a follow-on survey. Will let us know how we did today. Let us know how we're doing on these webinars in general if you'd like to see a particular topic. Although I will have to say that we've got over 130 webinars recorded up on the websites, and there's probably a topic covered if you have an interest in it, and go take a look at those during this webinar. I'll show you where to find those other webinars. And if you'd like to co-host a webinar with us, let us know on that survey as well. Also, if you let us know your shirt size, we're going to send you a free t-shirt just for joining us today. Anyway, moving on. All right, so let's talk a little bit about an introduction to the product. What is InduSoft Web Studio? Well, it's an HMI and kind of low-end SCADA package to be able to really talk to any device on any network, any data. And really we're talking about, you can see down here, open standards. We've got a lot of standards based in the product and always keeping security in mind. So with that, I'm going to talk today about some of the standards that we're adding into the product and flexibility that we're adding in. The next piece of this is the section where we're talking about portability and the ability to develop once and deploy anywhere on any Windows-based runtime, whether it's a full, what we call our license, the InduSoft Web Studio full runtime, either on a desktop operating system or a server operating system. And in Windows, the Embedded View license, which runs on Windows Embedded standard operating systems, such as Windows Embedded Standard 7, CE View that runs on Windows CE and Windows Embedded Compact, and now the IoT View license that supports Linux and VxWorks. So I'm bringing these up because I wanted to point out two things. Number one, this idea of developing once and deploy on any of these operating systems. Many of the features that I'm going to be talking about are specific to these licenses. I want to make sure you understand these names. InduSoft Web Studio, the full runtime, Embedded View, CE View, and IoT View are for these different operating systems. So hopefully you understand that as we get going. I see a question about the swipe to change screens. Hopefully, Steve, I'll try to get to that during that. I'm going to actually do a demonstration. Not knowing why you're seeing slow changes, maybe we can take that up after the webinar. You'll see, hopefully, the performance when I change screens here. So we'll get to that. Mobility. So if you're not aware of this, we offer 3 different types of thin clients. We offer one called Web Thin Client that's built on Internet Explorer. We offer another thin client called Secure Viewer, which you have to install a small piece of software that becomes that thin client. It allows you to remotely view and interact with those screens. Both of those have to be on Windows-based PCs because they use ActiveX as the technology that transports the tag values kind of behind the scenes. And then the third type of thin client we call Studio Mobile Access, or SMA. Now I'm going to refer to this in a couple of different ways. I apologize. Hopefully I don't lose anybody, but this is an HTML5 based thin client, and that allows you to view and interact with your screens on iPads, Android phones, tablets, Macintosh, Linux, Windows-based systems, basically via a browser. The really neat thing there is you don't need to open or install an app for each of these different devices. You don't need to maintain that. Your customers don't need to maintain that. So that's kind of a neat idea that we've had in the product for a few years. And so I'm going to talk about some of the enhancements that we're getting in those thin clients as we go forward. And as many of you know, if you've ever seen an InduSoft presentation, you've probably seen this diagram, our interoperability, our communications. Now, this center of this diagram is really the InduSoft Web Studio tags and how we can talk to over 240 drivers. But for this presentation, I wanted to point out kind of these 2 upper sections here. The fact that we support OPC DA, UA, .NET, and XML as clients today. We're going to talk a little bit about that and some additions to the client side here. We also support currently OPC DA as a server. Now what that allows you to do is if you have an OPC client out there, some third-party software, you can exchange data with our tags, get at our tag database directly through OPC DA. For those of you who don't know this, the OPC Foundation has actually started to call OPC DA OPC Classic because they're actively promoting OPC UA. Many places in the world have adopted UA as a standard. Here in the U.S., we're often a little bit behind in trying to adopt standards. But elsewhere in the world, OPC UA is quickly becoming the OPC standard. I'll talk a little bit about this OPC server and some stuff that we have to offer in upcoming versions. Okay, let's move on here. And let's see. Okay, so if you didn't know this, InduSoft Web Studio is just a really easy to use, yet still very powerful and affordable SCADA and HMI software. And as I've mentioned before, it can run on many different operating systems, including Microsoft Windows CE, mobile, embedded, desktop, and server editions, as well as Linux and VxWorks. And the idea of this return on investment or total cost of ownership is basically improved by the fact that you can develop a project once and deploy it on many different size screens, many different operating systems, and really have a product offering to your customers or for your machinery or your process that can really be deployed very easily and very nicely across different platforms. All right, so what's new and what's coming on the different products here? Give me just a second, take a quick drink of water. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. So this section, we're going to cover what was new in Service Pack 1. Now, Service Pack 1 came out previous to the current version. Currently, we're on Service Pack 1, Patch 1. But I wanted to catch everybody up just in case they didn't know what was on those versions. In the development environment, we have a new productivity feature. It's really kind of 2 features in one. It's a find and a replace. So you can do a excuse me, a global-based find in the product. So you can find text anywhere in the project, and on a document-by-document level, you can find text and replace it. This is something that really those of you who have developed projects, especially larger projects, have asked for. So we've put it in the product, and boy, can it save you a lot of time, especially when you're looking for where did I use that piece of text on this screen, or where did I call that? So that's a really nice feature to be able to use. Also for IoT View, and again, this is the Linux and VxWorks runtime license. We've now added support for the math task specifically on IoT View. Now, what does this give you? This gives you the ability to use some of the built-in scripting functions, the InduSoft built-in scripting language, in a math worksheet. Well, why is this important? Well, in the past, we had the ability to run some of the built-in scripting on a screen-by-screen basis, but if you wanted something to happen in the background all the time, independent of what screen you were on, well, you had to repeat that script over and over again on each screen. So this allows you, with some execution control, so you can determine when this runs and when this stops, to execute scripts in the background. So again, independent from what screen that you're on. So that's pretty handy, specifically for an IoT View application that's maybe collecting data or doing something with it. In addition to that, we've improved the support for our database connectivity. Previously in IoT View, we had the ability to, using the trend worksheet, log data to an external database. So from the IoT View license, we could connect up the Studio Database Gateway and, using the trend log, connect to a remote SQL database. Well, we can still do that today, but now in Service Pack 1, we actually support some of the built-in scripting language database functionality. So for those of you who are really into SQL and using SQL, again, for many of the functionality within InduSoft Web Studio, you don't have to know SQL to be able to get it to log to a SQL database. But if you do, if you're kind of a power user, then these commands will maybe look familiar to you, especially DB execute. Essentially what it allows you to do is create a named connection to a database, and then using that name, send it really any SQL commands that you want to. So using that same type of connection, but now instead of only supporting the trend worksheet, the trend task worksheet, now we support these functions and allow you to do very, very flexible SQL transactions with just about any SQL database that's out there. So again, it's very flexible and easy to do. Now, as we are progressing towards the future, one of the things that we're enhancing is our Studio Mobile Access, our HTML5 thin client. And as many of you may know, if you're using this feature, and I don't have an exact number here, it's hard to kind of pin down, but we've got about 90, maybe 95% of the features are supported in our HTML5 thin client. Well, the handful of those features that are not yet supported are, of course, some more complex ones, and we've had to rewrite those in HTML5 so that they're supported on these different platforms. Things like the trend control, the grid object, and the alarm object. Those are the last few to come along. Well, in Service Pack 1, that's been out for a little while now, we actually came up with a first pass at the trend control to be available on the HTML5 thin client. Really neat thing about this is you don't need to create an extra object or do anything special for your project. If you put the normal trend control object on the screen, when you view that on your browser, your HTML5 browser, you see an HTML5 variation of that object. So again, you didn't have to do anything special to create that. It knows that it's running on that client, and it knows how to then build that. So that's been a very popular thing from Service Pack 1. Another thing that we added, this is what I think is an extremely powerful feature, very neat, very expansive. We call it custom widgets. Now this is added again for the HTML5 clients, but the concept is this. If you're familiar with what an ActiveX control or a .NET control is, you'll understand this concept. If you're not familiar with those, let me explain it. With ActiveX and .NET, those are essentially third-party created objects or controls that you can, because we support ActiveX and .NET as standards, you can drop those objects on our screens. Our screens are what's called ActiveX or .NET containers. So you can put those controls that are created by somebody else directly into an InduSoft screen. Well, many customers have asked, well, I want to be able to do this on your HTML5 client, or I want to be able to do some technology, some code that I found out on the internet, often referred to as a web widget. Well, there's all kinds of things that you can find out there that are based on, let me see if I can annotate this here real quick, based on HTML5 and JavaScript. You can find all this different code that's out there, and but there's no standards associated with that. So what we've done is we've built a way that you can take third-party created HTML and JavaScript and CSS, put that inside the folder of your project, and then develop a front end of that, or develop a way to configure properties and events and directly tie into that JavaScript and HTML. Why is this important? Basically, it opens up the world to really any types of tools that you can imagine, that you can bring in these third-party based controls into your project screens. Some screenshots here are some examples. We actually have a webinar on this. This is an application that we did with the University of Texas. And here are some controls. So we brought in the weather, we brought in some Google Maps, we brought in some different charting tools that are not available directly in InduSoft Web Studio. So it really tied into that really nicely. I often refer to InduSoft Web Studio as maybe, at first I was calling it kind of a toolbox, or the best toolbox you could imagine. You could build whatever you wanted to out of it. Now I kind of refer to it as a complete hardware store, because we've grown so many features into the product. And maybe we had a few windows in the hardware store. I'm not talking Microsoft Windows. I'm talking hypothetically, Windows to allow you to bring in things like ActiveX, .NET, database commands, OPC, some of these open standards that allow us to bring in things from the outside. But what custom widgets allows us to do, it's kind of like building a huge door in the side of the hardware store, and now we can get out and view the rest of the world and communicate with it, and really just integrate anything that you could possibly imagine. Some of the things that are an idea here is you could bring in a browser that's not a Windows-based browser and view this on a tablet, let's say, and allow you to view and interact with maybe an IP camera or a web camera. Think of that. So you could, on your project running on Windows, view that camera, and then also on the tablet, whether it's Android, whether it's an Apple-based product, be able to also simultaneously view that camera feed. So that's kind of a neat idea. There was a question that came in: what HTML5 objects and jQuery do you support? Well, if you know a little bit of programming, it's honestly just about anything. The idea is with this custom widgets, we're actually creating an interface or an API that allows you, with a little bit of programming skills, to be able to, in your JavaScript, be able to call jQuery, call other utilities, and interface properties, and then understand what events are happening in there. So really just about anything and everything. If it's HTML5 supported, we can probably tie into it. So I hope that answers that question. So let's see. I went through the webinar and had issues. So I will say this takes some programming. So if you're not a strong programmer, which I am not, you're going to probably need some help doing this or learn. We also have the availability of our consulting services group that you can purchase some services down to 2-hour increments if our normal support department can't help you out, or maybe it's kind of above and beyond what they do. So hopefully I've answered those questions, because you should be able to really just about tie into just about any of those. A question is, will there be a webinar specifically for custom widgets? Currently we don't plan on doing a webinar, but I will show you this. Let me pull in the website here. I'll see if I can find this. There is a section here on example videos, and I hope I'm going to the right place. Yeah, here's a custom widgets tutorial. So it's about 18 minutes long, and we walk you through how to bring in the JavaScript and HTML, put those into your project, and essentially we create a web browser, which is kind of the beginning of what a custom widget can be. and show you how to do that. So that's a good place to start. Hopefully that that answers that question and helps you out. So let me go ahead and move this off screen here. So again, that's been in the product for a little while, as well as when we came out with Service Pack 1, we also launched a new tool, Rockwell Factory Talk ME and SE import tool. Now this is an add-on product. There's an additional license for this, but it allows you to take Factory Talk View, ME, and SE tags, screens, and alarms and bring them into an InduSoft Web Studio application. Now, as many of you know, an import tool is never 100% perfect. This one is kind of neat. It allows you to bring in, again, the tags, the screens, the alarms from a Factory Talk ME and SE application, and essentially it creates a real InduSoft Web Studio screen and alarms and things of that nature. So you have the ability to then make manual adjustments after you've brought them in from the automatic conversion. So if you're interested in this, let us know. Talk to your InduSoft representative, and there's a brochure on the website available. Take a look at this. Again, it's an add-on license, but if you want to give it a try, let us know. We really think this is an interesting tool, especially the availability of Factory Talk applications, and many people want to convert from those. Also, good to know is that you can work with our consulting services group on this. You can do this yourself. Lots of opportunities there. So take a look at that. Also, talking about our communications and our interoperability, we've added several new drivers. MQTT seems to be becoming the de facto standard for the industrial Internet of Things. Kawasaki robots, SNMP to manage networks, network devices, Siemens TIA driver, and over 20 different updated drivers since Service Pack 1. So really neat that this product has so many drivers built in, and we're always improving them. If you didn't know this, this is kind of neat. A lot of people don't realize this, that the drivers in InduSoft Web Studio are actually independent from the product version. So you can go to the website. In fact, let me do that here. You can go to the InduSoft website, go here under Products and Downloads, go to Drivers, and you can actually independently download the latest driver version and put that into not only the current version of product, but all the way back to version 6.1. Now, what that allows you to do is if there's a driver that works well for you and you want to stick with it, then you can put an older version of driver in a newer version of the product, or the opposite is true as well. You can put a brand new version of the driver, maybe the latest version of the driver, in an older version. If you're still using 7.1 or 7.0 or even some of the 6.1 versions, you could put those latest drivers into those applications as well. So again, that is how we keep that independent and kind of a neat idea for being able to do that. All right, so let's see. What version of .NET is supported with the new patch? Good question. I'm not sure we've made a change to that. I don't know off the top of my head. I wish I did. So I'm pretty sure it's at least 3.5, and it might be something later. I don't know off the top of my head, but I'll tell you this, that I don't think anything has changed with the version of .NET. So if you know what's supported in the current versions of 8, I don't think anything has changed there. Hopefully that answers your question. Let's see if there's any more questions. So who is a contact? I think you're asking specifically about HTML5 and custom widgets. If you need a contact, just send us an email at info@InduSoft, and we'll get somebody to hopefully answer your question. A question is there a wizard tool to convert from InduSoft to Factory Talk? The answer is no, specifically because we want to convert customers to our product, not away from our product. I think that makes sense. We've got a lot of people coming to InduSoft from the Rockwell product family because they're tired of it. They're tired of different practices from Rockwell. features that don't work, things of that nature, and they're ready to try something new. I hope that answers your question, but there's no conversion to go the other way. But we can definitely bring in from Factory Talk ME and SE. So I hope that answers your question. All right. So what is new in the current version, which is version 8.0, Service Pack 1, Patch 1? All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the basics of just quickly what the features are, and then I'm going to cover them a little bit more in depth. So here's a list of the things that are in Service Pack 1, Patch 1. We modified the custom widget to allow it to be resized. In the mobile access, we allowed a new zoom mode, swiping to change screens, swipe command, I'll demonstrate that, and then some miscellaneous improvements, requests and requirements, and then bug fixes or issues. So let's go ahead and run down through this list and talk about custom widgets. We now allow them to be resized on mobile access and on the local viewer. We've done some stability improvements and bug fixes on those. So if you were to, now these little rectangles represent kind of the initial placement of a custom widget on the screen. And now with pinch and zoom on a browser window or in the local viewer, you can now change the size of those custom widgets during runtime. So for example, if you had a browser, let's say, apologize for that. If you had a browser that you have, now you can actually zoom in or expand that window and contract that window with pinch and zoom. So that allows you to do that now with custom widgets. Enhancements on mobile access. So something that we've changed is the ability to do a new zoom mode on a single screen or on multiple screens. Now what this is let me show you an example of this. So what I've done here is I actually have a project that I created called Mobile Access Scaling. And I created one screen here. And what this is, let me zoom into full screen here. So when you fit this to window, this is 1920 by 1080 screen. And I've placed a almost full screen rectangle on here so you can see the border and see the boundaries of this. I put some objects up here and a button down in the corner just so you can kind of understand where the upper left corner is and the lower right corner is. And when I run this project, and you're going to see this go full screen on my laptop here. This, hopefully in the WebEx, you can see that this is full screen. And if I go back into the project, what I've done here under Thin Client, by default, here under Thin Client, Mobile Access, the global settings, if we scroll down here, this is set up for single screen scaling. So now that if I bring this into a browser window and I go to that screen here, so this is a Chrome browser, and if I was on a remote tablet, whatever the case may be, when I bring this up, it's going to challenge me, should challenge me, hopefully my VPN lets me do this here. This should challenge me for security, and then when I get through that, it should open up that screen. Now in this single screen mode, you should be able to see this, that I can have this screen, and if I had a touch screen here, I could pinch and zoom, this screen would change size. Now many of you who are familiar with some of our training classes and whatnot, you can actually have multiple screens open simultaneously, such as we do often in the training class, the header at the top, a navigation menu down at the side, and then a kind of a main screen area. Well, that's comprised of 3 different screens. So if you have this zoom mode set to a single screen, just that single screen will change size. So you have the ability to do this with auto scaling, with single screen where you can pinch and zoom, or it will zoom all of the whole entire screen group. So take a look at the help system on that explains that in a little bit more detail. And hopefully that explains that. So it allows the user to kind of zoom in on a single screen, where you have multiple screens. It's especially great for mobile devices and small devices or maybe you're trying to display a larger screen on something smaller. Now, here's a section. We had a question earlier on this, new swipe gestures. Now, I want to point out that this is not specifically for opening screens, although it makes a lot of sense based on kind of current standards that you would find on a phone or a tablet to be able to swipe left, swipe right, and be able to change those screens. But really, you can do any VB script command. Now, because of that, because it's in a VB script interface, it's not going to be supported on an SMA thin client, on HTML5, and it's not going to be supported on IoT View that does not run in a Windows environment, because VB script needs to run on Windows. So what you get, and I apologize because I didn't create this presentation. I think there's actually some timing. It's changing screens without me knowing it here. What we did here is we added these 4 new functions, these events, inside of the VB script screen interface. And I'll give you a demonstration of this. Before I do that, what I'm going to do is open up a screen here. Let's open up this main screen in this application. I'm going to move this rectangle out of the way and right-click on the background just so you see this. I didn't have to move that. Actually, I could have gone to graphics, and the script here is kind of the same thing. So on this screen script, if you right-click in the white space here, you're going to see this Add Touch Events. And we've previously had these 4 touch events for multi-touch, and now we're supporting on-screen or screen on swipe right, left, down, and up. And when I do this, for example, if I want to do a swipe left and watch this area here of the screen, when I choose that, it's going to put that procedure right there and allow me to put any VB script in here that I wanted. So, for example, I could do an open command and open a screen called, I don't know, trend, and oops, if I could type here. And so when I swipe left, now what that is basically putting my finger on the screen and then swiping towards the left direction. It'll recognize that as a swipe and then do whatever VB script is in this subroutine here. So again, it doesn't have to be an open command. I've counted things as I've swiped. You can really get very creative and do that. So that was just a precursor to what I'm about to show you. What I'm going to bring in here is a video. And hopefully I have this muted and you're not going to be able to hear the audio that's in this video. Where this comes from, or what is this video? This is a couple-minute long presentation that I've done. Actually, it's something new that you're going to be seeing on the InduSoft website in upcoming months. It's a new thing that we have coming out that they're simple videos, usually just a couple minutes long, that are showing you how to apply a particular feature. I'm calling these things Rapid Application Notes, or RAN, Rapid Application Notes. Now, this is the first in, I've got about 20 of these things that I want to do. If you have any ideas once you've seen this, again, it's just a quick idea to show you how to use a particular feature. So as let me maximize this here. And as I launch this video, this is, again, talking about the swiping gestures, show you how to use this. So very similar to what I just showed you, it's going to work with a project that already has a couple of screens created, one screen called Main and another one called Screen 2. And in this project, what I do is I'm just going to run this, and again, this is a video and I'm annotating over this or narrating. And so I show you that there's a title at the top and just a couple of different objects and some different variations so you can see those. And now I'm going to go into these screen scripts here, very similar to how I just showed you before I started the video, and go to the scripting area up here and open that screen script area, and then just in the white space, I'm going to click Add a Touch Event, and I'm going to choose On Swipe Left. And again, that's going to be when you put your finger on the screen and swipe in a leftward direction. And you can see that we can support up, down, left, or right. And inside of here, I'm just going to do very similar. What I did is use the open built-in scripting command. So I have to precede that with a $sign and type in open and then put the name of the screen that I want to go to. So since I'm on the main screen, I'm going to go to screen 2 from here. And since I'm going to reuse this, I don't have to go through that right-click procedure to get this. I can copy this. So I just hit Control-C there and go then into my next screen, go into that script area, put my cursor where I want it, and paste that in so I don't have to go through all those steps again if I got a bunch of code, and then change that to the main screen. So now I can swipe left and go from screen 1 to main screen to screen 2. So now when I run this project in this video, and again, this is a rapid application node, a new feature that we're going to be coming out with, not a feature, but a new thing highlighted on the website. Oh, don't forget that you have to enable for the particular type of screen, you have to enable the multi-touch settings, and then you have to enable the mode, whether it's an inner or outer type gesture. And that's explained in the manuals and other. So watching this area right here where the cursor is, and you'll see a little trail when I swipe my finger. So I swipe my finger and that changes pages. So for the person that says that they have slow screen changes, it really shouldn't be any slower than this. I mean, this is, we've added kind of a little transparent fade-in effect just to show you, but you know, it's virtually instantaneous. So hopefully you're seeing that. If you're seeing something slower than that, please get a hold of our technical support. So there you can see that that was just a couple-minute long video. And again, this is a new series that we're going to put up called the Rapid Application Notes. And I've got about 20 ideas already, but if you have something that you want to see that we can create a simple video for, shoot us an email. Again, reference Rapid Application Notes, and we'll try to get those done and up on the website here within the next few months or so. So that was hopefully beneficial for you. Let's see if there's anything coming in. Can touch events be used in a single touch HMI? The answer is no. Those are specifically for multi-touch enabled computers, and again, because it's VB script, it has to be on a Windows-based computer. So really good question. That's why I ran the video here actually. So I don't have a touch screen or a multi-touch screen on this laptop, so I recorded that video on another computer, and then that's how I was able to show that. So I wish that was the case. I'd love to be able to demonstrate that, but no, you need multi-touch because that actually reads from the computer, reads from the Windows-based, you know, the multi-touch input. So the neat thing is we didn't have to write anything specific for every type of computer and every type of touch screen, every type of driver. We just take the Windows interface and read that. So hopefully that explains that. Let's see if there's any other questions. Doesn't look like there's anything new. So let's move on. And what other improvements do we have? We modified the panel-made import wizard, and for those of you who have ever used that, there were some objects in there that we didn't have in panel-made, so we had to create some ActiveX objects, and some of those got grouped, and now we allow you to ungroup those and make modifications to that. We modified the built-in close function so that you don't have to pass it the name of the screen. If the current screen is in focus and you just pass it close, well, it will close that screen. We improved the Wonderware online connection using store and forward, so now that can be used. We also improved the hist-to-text function. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's when you have a trend log going to a proprietary file on the hard drive. The hist-to-text allows you to convert that proprietary file into a text file, basically a delimited file, and you basically pass it the start date, the duration, and a little bit more parameters. Well, if in the past, if the start date doesn't have any data, it would not perform right. So we've basically set it up to be able to generate output files when the start date doesn't actually have any data. So hopefully that's a good thing. We modified messages in the output window for the security when there's an authentication error. Hopefully that helps out some people. And then the Project Explorer's tree view, you can actually edit description tags for the shared tags database. So when you're doing things like tag integration, I think that's where that comes into play. I haven't actually used that feature. In addition to that, there's been several bug fixes. Let's see if there's anything that's relevant in here, but you can take a look at those. Also, it's very good to know, if you don't know this, you can always get a list of what's been changed in the product. If you go into the Help tab and look at the release notes, you can take a look. Now, this opened up in my browser because it's actually an XML file. So here is version 8, Service Pack 1, Patch 1, released back in January. Actually, I think this was the engineering day. We actually released this end of January, beginning of February. But this lists everything that was changed or modified, either through customer requests, internal requests, or bug fixes. And then we go back several versions in here. In this case, Service Pack 1. I think this file actually goes all the way back to version 8.0. And prior to that, that was a different file format. So you can go back to I think in the 6.1 versions, maybe even earlier than that, if you need to know what was fixed. Also, this is included in the product. As I pointed out, you can get to this by going Help and then Release Notes. But you can also find this under the documentation page on the website. You can get here, click for the current release notes for the current version, and then previous versions. So if you need that before you make your decision to download this file, that can help you out as well. All right, let me move this thing off screen here. Get back to my presentation. So many of you might have attended this webinar just to see what's coming up in the new versions, version 8.0, Service Pack 2, and beyond. So around the May time frame, and again, all of this information is subject to change, but currently what we're thinking about is the next version after Service Pack 1, Patch 1 will be Service Pack 2. And for those of you who don't know, any licenses that you have that are in the version 8.0 family, if you download service packs or patches, those are included for free. If we change even the decimal point, so version 8.1 later this year, that will be a paid-for upgrade. Usually there's reduced upgrade pricing. Depends on if you have a maintenance contract, which is optional, whether or not that's included or not. Let's see. There was a question, can touch events be, no, I already answered that one. Can the hist to text generate one file with a header? Now, can the old, that's a great question. Back on the hist to text, basically when you generate the hist to text, it creates a header file and the text file. The text file is the values, and the header contains the different tags. I don't think that's a specific feature now, but one of the things I wanted to point out here on, I think we've done this, here on the forums, which is often kind of users asking other users questions. We've done some things, let's see, we have some sample applications, and if I remember right, one of our guys actually did this where I think on here is an example of being able to export, and I don't know how far this goes back, but if it's not on here, hopefully I'll find it, but it allows you to convert, let's see if this is it, database, this just might not be it, but I think somewhere here on our forum we actually have done a sample application that is a hist to text, and it puts it all into a single file or shows you how to do that. So I'm not going to try to search that, but I'm pretty sure that answers that question on there. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about this. So version 8 Service Pack 2 coming out around May is going to support an OPC UA client on IoTView. So IoTView is, again, the Linux and VxWorks runtime. And when we released IoTView, we released it with a limited set of drivers. We've had to recreate those drivers specifically for Linux or VxWorks. So we did a limited set that we thought might help people get going. But we knew rather than creating all of the different drivers, because people are not going to use all the different drivers, we thought we'd come out with an OPC UA client, because that allows you to then use any third-party OPC UA server to then connect to really just about any controller that's out there. So that really just opens that world up immediately for IoTView. So though we already support Modbus TCP, Modbus Serial, MQTT, Allen Bradley, one of the Allen Bradley drivers. This OPC UA client on IoTView is just going to open up the world that much more. Also, the grid control on SMA thin client. So again, as I mentioned, the trend, the grid, and the alarm are some of the more advanced features that we have, and we're going to be adding the grid control on the SMA thin client. We've already got the trend control there, and we're going to be adding the the grid control on SMA client. I had a question come in. Let's see if I can get back to it. So somebody wanted me to show the bug fixes again and mention each one of these. I don't know a lot of these. Let's see if I can resolve the alignment issues. So when you have an enable enhanced graphics enabled, it looks like we improved the alignment issues with enhanced graphics. For those of you who don't know, the enhanced graphics actually turned on a new graphics rendering engine that we've had for a few years, which does anti-aliasing, which allows you to smooth out curves and angles. So that improved an alignment feature there. Resolved an issue with ActiveX, the events tab not saving new config. I'm not familiar with that one. Resolved mobile access feature not properly executing on-up commands. That one makes sense. Hopefully that's fixed something for you there. Global find and replace, not allowing the user to use it when some specific worksheets were open. So that was improved. Duplicated messages on alarm event control in the history mode. So that was fixed. And the trend object, when in batch mode, was causing some problems. So that was fixed. So thank you for asking the question. Hopefully that covered everything. Yep, looks okay. We got a thank you in there. Thanks, appreciate that. Always looking for good feedback. It makes my day brighter and happier, and hopefully we'll give a cheerier message as we get going here. Future plans. So I've talked about kind of a couple things, and of course there's more than this coming, but these are some things that we wanted to mention for Service Pack 2 coming around May. Around the August-September time frame, and again, these are all subject to change, but we're going to be streamlining. The current plan is to streamline the thin client licensing. We're going to make it easier and more flexible. So the current way that we do our thin client licensing, there's web thin client, there's three different types: web thin client, secure viewer, and studio mobile access. Currently you get one license with each runtime, and then you can increase those in multiples of 2 for each of the 3 types. So you could increase, let's say you could have 4 web thin clients, 8 secure viewer, and 128 SMA licenses. Well, we're going to make it so that it's kind of you get to pick and choose. So if you choose a license for 8, then you can choose any concurrent mechanism. So if you have a license for 8, you could choose 2 web thin clients and 6 SMA thin clients. So you can mix and match within that 8. The other thing is it's not going to go up in multiples of 2 anymore. We're considering offering this. You purchase the number that you want. So if you need 9, you don't have to purchase 16. You would just purchase the 9. And again, that's a number of concurrent licenses. So we hope that's encouraging. It's something that we've been asked about, and so we're going to implement that, change the licensing, and we're working on migrating to that and kind of a phase-in approach between now and version 8.1. We're also going to offer an OPC UA server for all platforms, so not only the Windows-based platforms, but for IoTView platforms as well. If you don't know what this is, currently in InduSoft Web Studio, let me save this screen here. If you have your project and you go under Tasks and you start this Studio SCADA OPC server, this is an OPC DA server that runs and allows a third-party OPC client to then connect up to our server and navigate and pull our tag information from the InduSoft tags. So right now this is a DA server, but we're going to be adding a UA server so that you'll be able to use third-party OPC UA clients on any of our platforms to get at our tag database. So again, making this, expanding the open standards-based concepts. We're going to be allowing those to come in. We're not doing away with drivers by any means. This is just enhancing the openness of our product and allowing you to get at those tools. This was actually a excuse me. This was actually a big request from a couple of customers, so we're adding that in. So again, we listen and we like to add those types of features in. So let's see. There was a question specifically about one of the database functions. I don't know specifically about that. You can always get a hold of our tech support on that or look in the release notes on that. And let's see. I think I covered all of these. Thanks for the compliments. Appreciate that. All right, so let's get into some of the supporting material. We basically, on the website, the Service Pack 1, Patch 1 is available for download now. We've updated the information on the website. We've got new feature videos and webinars. And again, as I mentioned, we've got over 130 webinars up on the website, so you can see where to get to these. Let me pull the website back into play here. If you go on the home page here and go under Support, Video Library, and Webinars, here they're listed in chronological order, and so they're posted in chronological order. But here on the right-hand side, you can see webinar categories. So if there's a particular feature that you're looking for, and I know from past experience that they're not all listed here. So just if you find a video that's not listed in the category, let us know. And they also started out in alphabetical order, but then for some reason they got added in here in not in alphabetical order. So just pay attention to that. But again, we've got over 130 of these things covering just about every imaginable feature in there. Also, you can find here under the training, you can find our online training videos. And this is essentially our entire 5-day training class online as videos for free. There's about 40 different videos in here. And even though they were recorded in version 7.1, they really cover version 8.0 very well. There's very few things that are missed in this. And we plan on adding new videos and supporting. So, for example, as multi-touch came out, we added multi-touch in here as well. So take a look at those. I'd like to help you out. In addition to that, there is something else. Let me go up to the home page here. That we host every month. It's this Jumpstart series, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But we have updated data sheets, PowerPoints, brochures. There's a stand-on template. So again, we've got many videos. We've got those training videos. And just FYI, our top 10 videos have over 120,000 views. That's pretty neat. Our blog has lots of technical content on it. It's not just a sales tool. We're trying to inform and educate. So take a look at our blog. We've got some recent case studies up there that if you didn't know about these case studies, they're real-world customers using real solutions of InduSoft Web Studio to solve problems. Even if you can't find a case study that's in your industries, some of these case studies cover some things that are wide-ranging and a broad scope. So take a look at some of those, especially some of the later ones. They're really neat. Talked about an updated data sheet. If you're not familiar with this data sheet, for those of you who are partners and distributors, this data sheet is in the middle part. It lists the features in alphabetical order. So when you go to a customer and they ask, does it support email? You can go to the letter E for email. There it is. T for trending, scripting, things of that nature. So again, it's in alphabetical order, making it very easy to use. PowerPoint presentations up there. We have several brochures. There's a mobile brochure highlighting thin clients and more. Our IoT View brochure. There's been some webinars specifically on IoT View. I did one a few months ago on how to connect IoT View using Linux to connect to a SQL database remote. And there's an add-on template. There's a brochure and a web page that highlights this add-on template. Now, this is much more than what I would consider add-on. Add-on means a lot of things to different people. I've often seen it as production monitoring, maybe on a large screen monitor up in the rafters, up and down a production line. But this template is configurable so that as it gets deployed, you can add machines in here. So maybe you specify your plant and you build a tree view. So you specify the plant, the zone, the area, the machine 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you go into zone 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's very flexible. You know, I've talked about zones and whatnot, but if you don't lay out your plant like that, you do it a different way, well, you can configure that tree view however you want to. And then you can add users, you can add fault codes, downtime codes, reason codes, and then this will build a whole production monitoring system. So again, that's an add-on. Find that up on the website. That's kind of a neat thing. Also, we've had a hardware certification program for quite a while, for at least 10 or 15 years. And what this is if you are running on a Windows-based PC, specifically embedded product, Windows CE, Windows Embedded, or even IoT View, and a full-blown Windows system for that matter, you can send it to us, your customer can send it to us, you can get the supplier of the hardware to send it to us, and we'll take a look at it, make sure it has the right installation, the right files needed to run, the right memory, the right horsepower, things of that nature, and we basically give you back a report. What this is a new brochure highlighting the certification program, but you don't have to wait for this brochure to come out. If you've got an application and you want to make sure that your hardware runs, let us know and send it to us, and we can get it tested and get you that report back. Also, if you didn't know, there's a Symbol of the Week program. We're up probably over 90 symbols now, and that can be found up on the website. Let me go back up to the top here under Store, Free Add-ons. When you go to this page on the website, for a few years now, we've been adding things like, here's an I/O faceplate for your PLC that breaks out the I/O and shows you if it's on or off and then what's going on there. Things like some gauges, statuses, indicators, there's some clocks, even joysticks, little trending modules. So lots of different options in here. I've even duplicated, for those of you who are familiar with Wonderware InTouch, I've duplicated some of the Orchestra graphics in here. These are not an import of Orchestra graphics. I've used the native InduSoft tools to create objects that look like the Orchestra graphics. And then we've had customers request certain things. I want a PID faceplate. I want an analog indicator that's clean and easy to use. Pump faceplates, binary displays. Now, we often will roll these up into the product versions, but that only happens every once in a while. So if you need any of these, feel free to download these. These are free of charge and can really be installed in any of the later versions, 8.0 and above, although some of the earlier ones were done in earlier versions as well. So feel free to take a look at those. Try to make some clean symbols. If you have any requests, let us know. All right, so I mentioned the Jumpstart webinar, and what that is an accelerated learning curve. As you have new users, rather than allowing them to maybe fumble around for their first few days and read the manual and try things out, this is about a 2.5-hour webinar. It's done live every month. And basically, it's focused on new users, trying to get them up to speed very quickly and very easily. So we've had really good response on this, and people just love that we try to help them out and get up to speed, especially when they maybe have been forced into using the product and they didn't decide on it on themselves. So we've already answered all the questions that I have in. So if you have any questions, put those into the chat panel or the Q&A panel. Had a lot of good feedback. Hopefully, I've answered everything. If I didn't, kind of scrolling back through here off screen. If I didn't, go ahead and put that question again into the chat panel or the Q&A panel, and I'll answer those now. If you didn't know, you can always send us an email, sales and product-related questions to info@indusoft.com. If you've got a support question, you can get a hold of us by phone or support@InduSoft, or you can always click on the chat on our homepage. So lots of ways to get a hold of us. We're right about at the time limit. I don't see any new questions coming in, so I'd like to thank everybody for attending. We had a really good turnout today. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully we get some more webinars in here. Don't forget to fill out that survey. Let us know how we did today. Let us know if you'd like to see any other topics covered in our upcoming webinars. And don't forget, if you're interested, let us know if you'd like to participate and co-host a webinar with us. We're always looking for guest speakers to show real installations of InduSoft Web Studio. So with that, I don't see any more questions coming in, so I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. Really thank everybody for the great questions and good feedback. Really appreciate it. So thank you for joining us. We're going to end the webinar now, and everybody have a great day, no matter where you're at.